Asia Pop 40.
Hello, I'm Joey, and yes, once again, we reach out to one of our favorite artists from around the world here on Asia Pop 40, and today he is all the way from London, I believe, extremely talented singer-songwriter. His name is Scott Quinn. Hello, Scott. How's it going?
Hello. Very good. Good to be here.
It's so good to have you. And I love the painting you have going on in the back, by the way. Actually, I've been looking at a lot of interviews that you do. Do you want to talk about the home setup that you have?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in my flat in Hackney in East London.
Yeah.
And basically, I have a very small studio setup here. I'm in my bedroom currently. And yeah, I'm lucky. I can make all the noise I like here. And I've recorded a lot of vocals here for my own stuff and some other like big songs out in the world. So it works great. And that in question, yeah, that's a really cool print. My mate down the road is a screen printer.
Yeah.
And he did these beautiful, he loves Japanese culture and he's got these COVID themed posters that I thought was kind of like a weird bit of memorabilia for the time, like we're going to forget it. But I like it anyway. It's very simple, but it's cool.
Yeah, I think this is a moment in history where we're going to look back on it for decades to come down the road.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. We can talk about it like it was the war. It's going to be like we lived through the time.
When you and I turn 60 or 70, this will be the thing that we talk about. You know, remember back in 2020. Yeah.
The difference being, though, I just literally have just sat here for a year and a half getting fat. So I haven't really been in the trenches or like doing anything of worth. So it's just been like I'll have to hammer up a bit.
Yeah, no, you and I and everybody else, we could really use some exercise and some fresh air. But this is the space, actually. This is the space where you wrote that song for BTS, Zara Larsson, A Brand New Day, and that Keith Urban, Say Something, right? Chart toppers.
Yeah, you've done your research good there. It's crazy. When I moved here, I moved from North Yorkshire in the north of England in the countryside. Yeah. I had no equipment. I was borrowing equipment and stuff. So I came down here and bought some equipment, and it was a really big moment for me because I've never owned my own little studio setup. And I said to myself, I think there's an Instagram post way back of me being like, I'm going to write some incredible songs here that are going to reach the world. And I was being a bit cocky, but also you've got to manifest this stuff. And sure enough, that was it. So yeah, I did a track for BTS that I recorded in here, did all the backing vocals on here, and it was just on this microphone and all the same. And then there's the same for the tune over lockdown. I did a song for Keith Urban, exactly the same setup. And I just think there's probably something to say for just feeling comfortable here, because this is my home and I just feel safe. So it's been a fun thing to do.
Is that true? I mean, for artists, for songwriters, are you more creative in a safe space?
I think I like to think there's a whole thing around vulnerability that I think is a real key component in songwriting, any art really. And I think that's why it's kind of a broken system in some ways. When you're a new writer or an artist, you get sent round to write with all these strangers on a daily basis. I love that personally. It's fun to meet new people. But unless you really hone a relationship with those people, I don't think you're going to get the best out of them. And so for me, I've been working on Zoom with so many people over lockdown, and usually I've kept to the people that I know and that I know work and I can be vulnerable with. And you just want to be able to say anything and there'd be no judgment and there'd be no kind of like, I don't know, alarm or anything. Not that there's anything alarming about the things I'm saying, but just kind of like you want to be able to express yourself and feel held. So I think definitely there's an element of that. And it's been interesting with Zoom because obviously there's no physical interaction and I've missed that a lot. Yeah. So getting back recently into the studio in the past couple of months has been exhausting because you've got that energy exchange again. Yeah. And I love that. I crave that. But it has been exhausting because I've just been used to talking to a screen, pressing the red button and just watching Netflix or something.
I think some people, well, I mean, it depends on if you're an extrovert or introvert, right? Some people enjoy feeding off or bouncing off the energy of somebody else. Some people enjoy writing by themselves. But as a professional performer, I think that's one of the hurdles you have to clear, right? Is to be comfortable being vulnerable in front of other people.
The extra complexity there is if you're an extroverted introvert, which I think I'm classed as. Because I would say if you met me in person, I think I'm a very outgoing person. I'm very interested in people. And, I can walk onto a stage and feel very confident, but I love my own company. And I am someone who needs that time to kind of like just rehabilitate and kind of re-energize. And I love, having that time. But that's an interesting balance to find.
I do feel like you have found that time to look on the inside, to be introspective about some of the things you've been going through, because the last 3 singles, from Nightmare to Better For Me to Holding On to Letting Go, it's very intimate. And there's an album coming out. Is it going to be equally intimate as the 3 singles that we've been listening to?
So it's an EP. There's one more song to come, and the premise of the EP is the journey of a tumultuous relationship, and it's
sounds
interesting
like a book, a title for a book.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And there's only really, when you look at it, there's only one uber positive song, which is Better For Me, and then the rest is quite tumultuous, and it's basically declining, slippery slope, which is, it has been the case for me in the past with relationships I've had, and I just think it's an interesting insight into that. And so Nightmare was about this shock to the system of like, wow, this person who I thought was incredible is not. It's all a bit gonna, oh my god, what's happening? And then the other 2, this single in particular and the one that's coming next, are all around the themes of codependency and not being able to let this thing lie. And even though this thing's been bad for us, we keep coming back to it. I guess like any addiction or kind of like any kind of habit like that.
Yeah, I do wonder whether or not it's for the theme of Nightmare, whether it's that we are shocked to find out who they are once we got to know them better, or that we've been lying to ourselves from the get-go. What do you think? Exactly.
Well, that's interesting. You found that insight, because that was another kind of theme when writing it. Because again, I've got all the voice notes for all these songs, and you can hear the progression of how these songs were written, and there's a lot of conversation in the room with my friends and collaborators who I made them with. Yeah. And that was a similar thing of being like, the veil has lifted and you're suddenly aware. And I think with Holding On to Letting Go, it's a funny one, because it's like a full circle back to then looking at yourself and being like, hang on, I'm doing this to me now. There's only, I'm really into psychology, I'm really into mental health, the whole idea of projection and the whole idea of most interactions you have are just a mirrored version of yourself. And so when this song came to be, I was like, this is interesting, because it's very much looking at me and being like, why? So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, to cite a line from the song Holding On to Letting Go, it goes, you've had millions of, what is that? I know I could make it easy, but I don't. The second I get over you, when it's really over, you get closure, but I keep on holding to letting go. So
very good.
So you want to hold on to letting go. Oh, because, and you know what? I remember it because I shared the sentiments. There are relationships where you don't want to get over it, because once you've gotten over it, it's like that period of your life is over. It's like finishing a good book, right? You don't want to finish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I've done that recently with books. I've literally just stopped reading them because I don't want to get to the end. So it's always there to be finished. Yeah, it's 100%. And that there's many lines in that song that just popped out that me and my friend Adam, who wrote it, were just like, wow, that's profound. And it just came from us both. We're both going through similar situations. And yeah, it's even the title is such a simple idea, but it's quite complex. I've been saying it to people whose English isn't their first language. A lot in German, for example, it doesn't really translate very well. Yeah. Like the idea doesn't really twig. And so it's interesting having to explain it to people, because they're the antithesis of each other. To hold on to something and to let go of something. So to hold on to the act of letting go of something is quite an interesting premise. And so that in itself was interesting to us, because there's a few songs with a similar title, but it's never really been written upon, which baffled me. Well, and then there are other plays in the stuff like there's a line in there, I've been sleeping lately, it scares me to death because I think I'm getting better and I'm not ready yet. That's also an interesting angle, because it's like the thing's improving, your body's literally healing, you are now finding time to be peaceful and sleep, but you don't want it, and that terrifies you. And so it's interesting. Sometimes I really do believe in songs kind of like, there's a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert that I absolutely love, and it talks about how ideas are basically like creative energy, and it's all up in the ether, and people who practice in something creative or artistically channel that, and they open up kind of like a door to say, come in. And I think this is one of those days where this thing just like drops straight in.
So what you're saying, so what you're saying is that essentially creativity is a practice art, right? That if you do it, you get better at it. That's what you're saying?
I think it's kind of like the idea of luck. Like, luck is this elusive thing, but you can create your own luck. You can put yourself in positions to receive it.
Yeah.
And I think with creativity, the more you delve into it and the more you're vulnerable with yourself, you're allowing yourself the opportunity to receive an idea. And I know this is a shared idea by many creatives, because it gets to the point sometimes. I've written some songs will take me weeks to write. Other songs that appear to be quite poignant and deep songs will just drop right through, and you sit there and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Because there's no logical, you're not consciously thinking about it, it's all subconscious, and that fascinates me. And I'm not a particularly religious person. I would say I'm quite a spiritual person. I massively believe in energy, as we are all built up of.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't creativity be of the same kind of like realm as that? So when it kind of drops in like that, and this song was just one of those, because people connect with it.
Yeah.
And I've had so many messages and people sharing their vulnerable stories, and you never know until it's released what it's going to do to people, if anything. No. And I think the previous releases, there's definitely been some of that. Better For Me made people feel good, but there wasn't necessarily a massive emotional connection. Whereas with this, it's just been mad. This single's been crazy for the people sharing very vulnerable stories online, and just like literally begging their partners to take them back in front of everyone. I'm like, oh god, this is quite a lot.
No, I love it, by the way. I love that you make rhyming so easy in your songs. Like some of the lyrics that you write, it's like you said, it's simple wording, really. Like it's easy to translate into a different language, and the message is simple, but somehow you make it rhyme too. And then when you do all three, it clicks really well. And I can tell you're someone who's very deep. You like philosophy, and you're also a champion of mental health. Is it that you have gone through mental health, the hurdles of mental health, or that you've seen a lot of people going through it?
It's definitely a mix of both, and I feel fortunate. It's another thing, I don't know where I got it from, but I've always had this self-awareness of it. And so it was at first year of university. The university was incredible, but the area in which I lived was a massive culture shock to me. I'd come from the countryside up north, and I was now very much in a city environment, and there was a lot of gangs and drugs and police raids every day and all this stuff. And I just wasn't making me happy. And music was my kind of like therapy before I knew what therapy was. And this university, even though it was a music course, only had one piano in the entire place. And I only had access to it for like 1 hour a week, and that just wasn't enough for me. So I got depressed. I went home, and I knew I needed to get a diagnosis. There was something in me that needed to be validated in that. And got diagnosed with depression. Luckily, and I don't, I have no negative views on any form of therapy or medication. You need what you need. Yep. I didn't need any medication at the time. I just kind of focused on me. But then I did realize around that time there's a massive stigma. And I remember I was in a cafe talking to my friend about having depression, and this guy on the other table was like, maybe you should keep your voice down, keep that stuff to yourself. And something just clicked in my head, and I was like, and this is where my whole interest in like projection started, because I was like, in my head something said, that's you, that's yours, that's not mine. So what he was saying to me was him and not me. And something happened. I was like, okay, we need to work on this. This is something we need to work on. And so from there on, I've kind of been massively a pro mental health advocate. I've set up a number of initiatives. There's a music-led one, which predominantly was trying to help people in the music industry with their mental health, because it's a tough industry where the commodity you're trading is your creativity. It's something vulnerable to you. And then suddenly you're sat around a table with like all these business people being like, you need to dress in this jacket to make the song go big. You're like, oh, there's more to it than that. And then definitely, and I did a bunch of therapy, and I did CBT, and I've read a lot, and I do attract people into my life also who need that kind of support. And so I have people very close to me who are wonderful, creative, beautiful people who've had terrible times with their mental health. And I feel fortunate to be able to give them a hand and to guide them. But ultimately, it's all about the conversation. And if we can make it as normal as, breaking your arm and getting a sling, that's where I kind of want to get to. I want it to be almost boring. I want people to be like, oh, I've got another bout of depression again. It's like, it's all right, cool. You just go to see a therapist. It's all fixed. It's all fine. Yeah. Whereas at the minute, it's massively kind of fetishized in culture and movies and stuff. And even now it's become like this kind of like corporate aid to make you seem woke. And I'm just like, come on, I don't know. We've all got it. We've all got mental health, degrees of mental health. And I didn't know I didn't have a word for anxiety until I was 18, but I felt it as a kid. So all of that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I could talk about it for hours. I'm just ranting on and on and on.
No.
Yeah,
I think it's very important to be like that, to look on the inside and know what you're going through. But do you also agree, perhaps, that sometimes the things we hate the most are the things that we inflict upon ourselves? Like, for example, that person who said to you that you should probably keep this to yourself. Maybe he or she is the person who really needs to let it out.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's that learning and understanding projection. And I read a beautiful book recently called The Body Keeps the Score, which is all about trauma and how it manifests in the body and stuff. And that these concepts are also interesting as a musician and a creative, and also just for someone who's passionate about psychology and things. But once you learn about how we all project our image of ourselves onto people, you can see how, like, the ultimate premise of hurt people. And so it's always been that idea, like the bully in the playground often is probably getting bullied somewhere else. And it's this knock-on effect. And this is where we need to start breaking these patterns. And whether it's through therapy, whether it's through art, whether it's through all of these things, we need to start breaking patterns. Because I honestly believe if we got a handle on education and got a handle on mental health awareness at a young age moving forward, like things like war wouldn't exist to me. That as a concept, war just feels like a very egotistical front. And I just think about all these, mainly men in those senior positions who wage war, all these damaged children essentially who had absent fathers, and who are like I just think they're just angry. And I'm just like, we wouldn't have any of this. So I'm not naive. I don't see us living in this beautiful world where there's no such thing as bad things, but I think it could go a long way. And I think we need to take a massive interest in our own mental health. So.
I agree. I think with COVID-19 we learned that we are not just individuals, we live in communities where if one of us gets it, your whole social network is at risk, right? Mental health is the same thing. If you don't cure yourself, or if you aren't careful of your mental health, then you run the risk of passing it on to your spouse,
especially
your
if you're
kids.
Have children. And exactly. The children's a massive one because that's how it keeps repeating. Again, it's something I'm so passionate about. And it's always interesting finding people who are like interested in. I can see your Red Sapiens, it's behind you there. I can see your book behind you. All that stuff. People. I just love people. And so even as a songwriter, getting to explore that on a daily basis has been really cathartic. And I didn't realize at first that that's what I was doing, but I'm just really interested in how we all interact and people as a theme.
Yeah. So everyone who's watching this, find the time to heal yourself, to make yourself better mentally and, of course, physically. And if you need some consolation, if you need some help along the way, listening to the music from Scott Quinn. New EP is out, I think, early June. Wait, is it out? No, early July, right? Mid to early July.
Mid-July. We're aiming for.
Okay. And so you said the other two songs are more about what? I can't quite remember the last.
So there's one more single to come, and it's along the same themes of just this cycle, the cyclical nature of not wanting to let this thing die.
Yeah.
And this final song, there's a collaboration version of it. We're doing two versions of it. One of it's going to come out. It's collaborate with an artist over your side of the world, but I'm not going to share too much. But
my side
great.
Of the world in Asia.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is interesting.
So, which is dead exciting, and I'll say I can give away some bits.
Easy.
She's wonderful, and she's very talented, and I'm looking forward to it. And it just fits. This song was meant for a duet, basically, but it's going to come out as a single by myself first, and then we're going to do that. Okay.
I fear that you have already said too much, but thank you for that.
There's a red dot's just appeared on my forehead, and they're like, shh.
All right, well, look out for the new EP coming out mid-July, and for now we can enjoy all the singles that's been dropped so far. Nightmare, Better For Me, the title track, and of course, as of late, Holding On to Letting Go. Today we have Scott Quinn with us. Now, Scott, one last question. As we were talking about mental health, as we talked about being introspective with your new EP, right now a lot of people, especially on my side of the world, in my neck of the woods, we're going through lockdowns. And a lot of people might need a little tidbits or help to keep ourselves mentally stable during lockdowns. Do you have any tricks?
I massively got into meditation again, which was always such a cliche, like, oh, just go meditate. It massively helped me. There was an app called Waking Up by Sam Harris, which is really good. For me, he meets in the middle of kind of philosophy and spiritualism, and kind of sits right in the middle. So he gives you kind of a no-nonsense approach. There's no kind of like, you don't feel too grandiose. It's very much just like, this is what we're doing and this can help, keep at it. It's great.
Okay.
So meditation for sure has been amazing. I did journaling for a bit. There's all those small things you can do where you just write out your thoughts every morning. But for me, it's just I have the same, like, for me, it's just some routine really helps. As a self-employed creative, it's really easy to lose your routine, but every day I have the same breakfast, for example, and I love making slow coffee, and I have it on the stove top, and everything takes time, and I love grinding beans with my hands, and it's all this very tactile grounding process, so that I can at least by the time I finish that morning routine, I've like arrived and I'm awake and I'm like ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think without those things, when I've been on tour before, I always try and replicate those things so that I can have a little bit of home wherever I go. And I think that's really important. And then also just nourish your relationships and your friendships. I think we all went, I don't know what it was like over there, but in the UK, the first and second lockdown we had, everyone was doing quizzes, we're all like baking together, and it was just like, and then third lockdown came, we were all exhausted and none of us spoke to each other. And it was like understandable. We were like, hey, we get it. But it's also important to keep those people close and check in with people, because also it's rewarding to check in with people and give something to them. And in turn, you get something back. So
yeah. I am someone who is an avid viewer of this show called Rick and Morty, and I remember one of the episodes. This therapist talks about how the routines, basically maintenance of your mental health or your physical health or your relationship with people, it's boring, but it's very rewarding, and that's what you need to work on, right? The boring stuff, you know, and
push through the boring.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone can stay healthy, wear your masks, wash your hands, and listen to Scott Quinn and wait for the new EP to come out called Better For Me. And thank you, Scott, for joining here today.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. It means the world. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Hi, I'm Scott Quinn, and you're listening to Asia Pop 40.
Asia Pop 40.